All right, let's dive into a book that's, well, it's pretty infamous. We're talking about Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. You've probably heard of it, right? Some people see it as this super Machiavellian, almost evil manual. Others think it's just a brilliant breakdown of history. But here's the core idea. Greene says power is a game, a timeless one. And if you're going to play, you absolutely have to know the rules.
So Greene kicks things off with this really bold statement. Do not fool yourself into thinking that life has changed much since the days of Louis XIV and the Medicis. I mean, think about that. He's basically saying that, yeah, we have smartphones and modern offices, but the deep down fundamental ways people get power, keep it, and lose it, they haven't really changed at all. Why? Because human nature, he argues, is the one thing that stays the same.
Okay, so if power is this big, timeless game, what are the rules? Well, Greene lays out 48 of them, and he didn't just make them up. He pulled them from studying thousands of years of history, looking at everyone from kings and queens to con artists and generals. The whole point is, if you can spot these patterns, you can become a much smarter player. Or, at the very least, you can learn to defend yourself when someone else tries to make a move on you.
So, the first big theme we're going to tackle is this idea of controlling what other people see. This is huge. Greene's point is that a lot of the time, what people think is real is way more important than what's actually real. So if you can manage your reputation, control the story people tell about you, and direct their attention where you want it to go, well, you're already way ahead in the game.
And that brings us to a really provocative one, law number 6, which is court attention at all costs. Think about that. The idea here is that any kind of attention, whether it's good or bad, is a source of power. In this game of power, the worst thing that can happen to you isn't getting attacked or criticized, it's being completely ignored. It's becoming invisible.
You know who is an absolute genius at this? P.T. Barnum, the famous showman. This guy got it. He knew that getting slammed in the newspapers wasn't a bad thing at all. He saw it as free advertising. In fact, he would literally give his biggest, loudest critics the best seats at his shows because he knew that a fiery, angry review was 1,000 times better for business than just silence. Anything is better than being forgotten.
And this idea of getting attention ties right into Law 37, create compelling spectacles. See, power isn't just about what you do behind the scenes. It's also about the performance. It's about the show. Big, symbolic gestures, amazing visuals. That stuff can completely capture an audience. It kind of bypasses their logical brain and hits them right in the gut, creating this aura of power around you.
Take the story of Michelangelo, for example. He was given this giant block of marble that every other sculptor in Florence had given up on. They said it was ruined, worthless. But Michelangelo, he didn't see a problem. He saw an incredible opportunity for a spectacle. And when he carved the statue of David from that useless piece of stone, man, he didn't just make a sculpture. He created a legend. A story about turning a total disaster into an absolute masterpiece. And all of Florence was just blown away.
But here's a twist. Controlling what people see isn't always about being front and center. In fact, sometimes the smartest, most powerful thing you can do is just vanish. That's Law 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor. It sounds kind of backward, right? But the idea is that if you make yourself scarce, your value goes up. If you're always around, you become common. You become wallpaper.
Napoleon Bonaparte knew this inside and out. He basically said, if I am often seen at the theater, people will cease to notice me. He got it. The more people see of you, the less they think about you, the less they wonder. But when you pull back strategically, you create a little mystery, a little respect. And then when you do show up, it feels like a big deal. It feels like an event.
Okay, so controlling perception is one thing, but it's only half the story. Now we're getting into action. But, and this is key, it's not about big, loud, obvious moves. No. Greene argues that the most effective power plays are the ones that are subtle, indirect, the kinds of moves you make where no one even knows what you're really up to.
And a perfect example of this is Law 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. The idea here is that when you have a problem in a group, a troublemaker, a source of dissent, it can almost always be traced back to one single influential person. So instead of wasting your energy fighting the whole group, the smartest move is to just neutralize that one person. Isolate them, remove them, and the rest of the problem just dissolves. History's got a fantastic example of this. So back in 14th century Florence, the famous poet Dante was the #1 enemy of Pope Boniface VIII. Dante was blocking all the Pope's moves to control the city. So what did the Pope do? Did he send an army? No. He did something much smarter. He invited Dante and a few other officials from Florence to Rome for peace talks. Then, once they were there, he told everyone they could go home, except for Dante. He just kept him there, and with Dante, the shepherd, stuck in Rome, the Pope's allies back in Florence took over the city, just like that. It was a totally brilliant, indirect hit.
Now this next one is probably the most ruthless, most cold-blooded law in the whole book. Law 15, crush your enemy totally. Greene's logic here isn't about being evil, it's about being pragmatic. He says that when you beat an enemy, you can't leave them any chance to get back on their feet, because a wounded enemy, that's the most dangerous kind. They'll just sit there, stewing, holding a grudge, and waiting for the perfect moment to get their revenge.
I mean, it's straight out of Machiavelli, who famously said that if you're going to hurt someone, the injury must be such that we need not fear his vengeance. The logic is chilling, but it's crystal clear. If you make a move, you have to go all the way. Half measures, pulling your punches, all that does is create an enemy for life, who's just waiting to strike back.
But, the book isn't all about crushing enemies in grand historical schemes. A huge part of it is about what Greene calls court politics. And don't let the name fool you. This isn't just about ancient royal courts. It's about navigating any kind of social ladder, whether it's your office, your social circle, whatever. It's all about how to handle the people above you and next to you.
And the master of this was King Louis XIV of France, the Sun King. He had this amazing trick for keeping all of his advisors and nobles totally off balance and completely dependent on him. He was purposefully vague, unpredictable. His ministers would come to him with these super detailed plans and proposals. He'd listen to the whole thing and then just say, "I shall see." That's it. They never had any idea what he was really thinking, and that uncertainty gave him total, absolute power. So how in the world do you deal with a boss or a system like that? Well, Greene basically gives you a survival guide. And rule number 1 is huge. Never outshine the master. Now, this doesn't mean you should be bad at your job. Not at all. It just means you have to understand that powerful people can be really insecure. If you make them look good, you become essential. But if you make them feel threatened or look stupid, you're suddenly a target. And another big one, always try to be a source of pleasure, not a bearer of bad news.
There's this amazing story about the Renaissance painter Fra Filippo Lippi that shows how powerful this can be. So, he gets captured by pirates and sold into slavery. One day, he picks up a piece of charcoal and sketches this absolutely perfect portrait of his master. And the master sees it and is just stunned. He realizes, wait a minute, this guy has a skill that is so rare, so incredible, he's way too valuable to be a slave. Just by demonstrating his unique talent, by making it a gift, Lippi literally won his own freedom.
And this brings us to a really, really critical piece of advice for anyone working their way up. You could argue about spreadsheets, you can debate strategy, but what you can never do is question or insult your boss's personal taste. As Greene puts it, taste is one of the ego's prickliest parts. It's a direct hit to their identity, and honestly, it can be a career killer. Just don't go there.
So, this all leads to the big question, right? The one that hangs over this whole book. If all this stuff is true, if power really does work according to these cold and, let's be honest, often amoral rules, what are we supposed to do with that information?
Well, Greene's answer is pretty clear. He says this book is not a moral instruction manual. It's not telling you to be a good person or a bad person. It's just presenting power as a tool, a set of skills that people have been using for all of human history. The goal is just to understand how it works, so you can see it when someone's trying to use it on you, and maybe, just maybe, learn how to use it to get what you want. It describes the world as it is. It doesn't prescribe how it should be.
All right, so let's just quickly run through the main takeaways here. First, these power dynamics, they're timeless. They're not going anywhere. Second, what people see is often way more important than what's real. Third, going indirect is almost always smarter than a direct head-on attack. Fourth, your social intelligence is one of your most powerful weapons. And finally, the big one, power is a game, and if you don't study it, you're going to lose.
And look, we've only really scratched the surface today. We've talked about what, maybe 5 or 6 of these laws? You gotta remember, Greene lays out 48 of them in total. 48! Each one packed with stories and examples from history, all building this huge picture of how the game of power is played.
And that really leaves us with the final, big, provocative question. Greene's whole argument is that we are all playing this game, whether we want to or not. We don't get to opt out. So the only real choice we have is how we're going to play. Are we going to be conscious of the rules? Are we going to be skillful? And are we going to be ethical? So the question for you is, if you have to play, how will you?